Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the frozen boots of someone who didn't ask to be born in the Middle Ages, but here you are anyway. It's still dark outside, and your nose is the first part of your body to report that the fire has long since gone out. You're lying on a pile of old straw, stuffed into a cloth sack, which was generously called a mattress when your grandfather made it. It smells faintly of mold and someone else's farts, maybe yours. It's too cold to care. Your breath fogs in front of your face. Your hands wrapped into your armpits for warmth feel like they belong to someone else, possibly a corpse. You blink slowly, eyelids crusted with sleep, the kind that doesn't refresh you so much as delay your suffering. Your joints protest. Your back cracks. The cold doesn't just seep into your bones. It lives there now like a grumpy lodger who refuses to pay rent. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up slowly, because if you move too fast, you might literally snap something. Your shirt, still damp from yesterday's sweat, has frozen slightly against the blanket, which makes a delightful peeling sound as you separate them. The first step onto the floor feels like stepping on knives made of icicles. You forgot to put your boots near the hearth. Rookie mistake. They're now frozen stiff, and you may need to break the laces just to get your feet inside. Outside, the winter morning is still asleep. No bird song, no neighbor's dog, just the occasional groan of snow shifting on a sagging thatched roof. There's no window glass to peek through, just a wooden shutter rimmed with frost. You nudge it open, and the cold slaps you full in the face. Congratulations. You're officially awake. This is January in 14th century England, or France, or some equally gray, soggy corner of Europe. The specifics hardly matter. What matters is this: it's the kind of cold that laughs at your layers, the kind that seeps into your marrow and whispers, "You probably won't survive this." But you're stubborn, and there's work to be done. The fire has gone out, which is both a health hazard and a mortal sin. Everyone in the house knows whose job it was to bank the coals last night. That someone might have been you. You can already feel your mother's glare from across the room, even if she's still under her blanket trying to pretend she's asleep. You grab the iron poker and poke around the ashes. If you're lucky, there's one ember left, glowing faintly, stubborn like you. If you're not well, hope you're in good standing with the neighbors, because it's time to go beg a hot coal. You wrap yourself in whatever fabric resembles a cloak, actually just an old bit of canvas with a hole cut in it, and step outside. The world is white and gray and perfectly still. Snow mutes the sound of your footsteps, but you still manage to slip once and nearly eat a frozen log. Dignity, never heard of it. Your neighbor's door creaks open like it's been told a terrible secret. They're already up, of course. Medieval life doesn't believe in sleeping in. They eye you with the kind of expression that says, "We know you let your fire die." With wordless understanding, they hand over a glowing lump of coal in a rusted metal pan. You thank them with a grunt. They grunt back. No one wants to talk before sunrise. Historians still argue whether most peasants truly kept fires going all night, or if it was more common to relight them every morning. One school claims that banking coals under ash preserved heat. Another insists that was mostly wishful thinking, like trying to keep soup warm with a prayer. Either way, you shuffle home with your prize like it's the crown jewels. One wrong move and the ember could tumble into the snow and hiss itself into oblivion. You make it back, barely. You feed the hearth like a starving pet, kindling a few dry twigs and whispered threats. Smoke curls upward, a good sign. It catches. A tiny flame is born, flickering like it knows what it's up against. You sit beside it, warming your hands, breathing in the sweet smell of burning pine and old meat drippings from the previous night. Your family starts to stir. Your youngest sibling sneezes somewhere under the shared blanket pile, which doubles as their bed. The pig in the corner grunts. You'd think you'd get used to sharing a single-room hut with livestock, but nope. The smell always finds new ways to offend you. Your stomach growls. Breakfast will come next. Spoiler, it won't be good. But for now, in this brief pocket of warmth, you take a moment to enjoy the smallest of victories. The fire is back, and you're still alive. The fire crackles, throwing a soft amber glow onto the dirt floor, and your hands finally start remembering what warm feels like. They're not exactly nimble, more like thawing sausages, but they move. That's good. You're going to need them. Because now comes the next challenge of surviving a medieval winter morning breakfast. You'd love something hot and filling porridge, maybe, or a crust of fresh bread. But the kitchen, if you can even call it that, is mostly a shelf with a bowl, a knife, and a wooden spoon that's seen better centuries. You check the larder and find disappointment, as usual. There's a hunk of oatcake from 2 days ago. It's roughly the size and density of a roof tile. You knock it against the wall, and it makes a sound that would scare away birds. Still, calories are calories. You scrape a bit of lard onto the oat slab, hoping it'll soften. When you warm it near the fire, it doesn't. It just becomes warm disappointment. Your family begins to stir. Your mother coughs a harsh, bark-like sound that echoes in the rafters. No one mentions it, but everyone hears it. Winter coughs are normal, until they're not. Meanwhile, your younger brother is chewing on a piece of hard cheese that looks like it was made before he was born. You all pretend not to notice the speck of mold. The pigs probably ate worse. That's the bar. Speaking of pigs, the one in the corner farts loudly and shifts its bulk against the wall. A reminder that even livestock has opinions on your living arrangements. You break your breakfast into bite-sized regrets and chew slowly. It's not about flavor. It's about survival. The medieval peasant diet, especially in winter, was less balanced nutrition, and more what's left that hasn't rotted. Historians generally agree that bread, oats, onions, and dried legumes form the core of the diet. Fresh produce. Not this time of year. You haven't seen a green thing since November. And meat only if something dies. Preferably not you. There's a family in the next village known for eating songbirds during the winter, not roasting them more, like crushing them and boiling the bones into a weak broth. It's said to help with colds, or at least distract you from having one. Some monasteries raised pigeons specifically for this purpose. Quirky, yes, delicious, debatable. You sip from a wooden cup of lukewarm ale. Because water isn't safe, and tea isn't invented here yet. It's more vinegar than beverage, but it helps wash down the stale food. Barely. Outside, the gray sky begins to brighten, revealing icicles like teeth along the roof's edge. It hasn't snowed overnight. Small mercies, but the layer on the ground remains thick, crusted over from last night's freeze. Every step is a gamble. You once watched a neighbor's uncle fall straight through a snowdrift into a hidden puddle. He emerged cursing and soaked a walking warning about false confidence. You start gathering the morning scraps, oat crumbs, bits of lard paper, and the charred end of a carrot that somehow made its way into last night's stew. The food waste goes to the pigs, your most consistent garbage disposal. They snort in approval, misty breath clouding the air like dragons who never learned to fly. One of the chickens has frozen overnight. You find it stiff as a wooden spoon, wings slightly spread like it died mid-prayer. Your mother clicks her tongue. Waste is not an option. She plucks it briskly near the hearth, muttering that dinner came early. You can already smell the faint, sweet odor of burnt feathers. You should be disgusted. You're not. You're thinking about the soup. Historians still argue whether peasant families shared communal meals or ate more separately by age and status. One argument suggests the hearth was the heart of the home, a literal and symbolic center around which all life turned. Others propose a more fragmented approach, eating when there was food, not necessarily when others were around. Either way, you know this, no one eats first unless they're holding the knife. You poke your portion of oatcake again, still solid. You take a bite and a piece of your molar might have chipped. Doesn't matter. You chew with the determination of someone who has no alternative. A rat scurries across the ceiling beam. You name it, Bernard. He's been here longer than your sister. Some mornings your father tells stories over breakfast. This isn't one of those mornings. He's silent, staring into the fire like it owes him money. You wonder what he's thinking. Probably about the roof. It groaned ominously during last night's windstorm, and there's a patch near the chimney where you can see stars, sometimes even snowflakes, if you lie in just the right spot. That'll need fixing by you. But first, you gather your tools, a wooden bucket with a crack down one side, a dull hatchet, and your last clean scrap of wool to tie around your ears. Then you're out the door again, slipping slightly on the iced-over threshold. The cold greets you like an old enemy, sharp, sarcastic, and persistent. You breathe in and immediately regret it. Your nostrils freeze slightly together. Lovely. This morning's chore, foraging for kindling. The good stuff's long gone. What's left is damp, brittle, or deeply suspicious looking. You poke around behind the animal shed and find something resembling a branch. You give it a shake. It snaps in half. Into the bucket it goes. You'll dry it by the fire later, or try. The woods are quiet. Too quiet. You half expect to see something emerge from the fog. A wolf, maybe. Or worse, a tax collector. But nothing comes. Just the distant clank of someone's axe and a crow's sarcastic caw from a crooked tree. Your hands go numb again. You blow on them, rub them, slap them against your legs. Somewhere deep in your boots, a toe gives up on being a toe and becomes a suggestion. You ignore it. You're good at ignoring discomfort. It's practically a skill now. By the time you return to the house, your bucket is full, and your will to live is slightly less so. The smell of stewing chicken greets you along with the sound of your baby sister coughing like she's auditioning for a ghost story. You rejoin the fire circle, dump your haul of wet sticks, and wiggle your fingers near the flames. The oatcake is gone. Your father finally speaks. Roof's next. Of course it is. You nod, because breakfast is over. And so is mercy. You're already on the roof before you remember how much you hate being on the roof. It creaks under your knees with the tired sigh of a structure that's seen too many winters, too many repairs, made with hope and twine. The thatch here isn't elegant. It's not even uniform. It's a lumpy patchwork of reeds, straw, and something suspiciously mossy that someone swore would seal out the wind. It doesn't. Your fingers are stiff as you try to wedge new bundles into the cold, shifting weave. You're supposed to tie them down tight with wooden pegs and straw rope, but your gloves are more whole than fabric, and your thumbs aren't cooperating. It's like braiding rope with two frozen sausages. From up here, you can see the entire hamlet. If you squint hard enough, you can make out the smoke curling from chimney holes across the slope, a dozen families trying to outstubborn the cold. Your neighbor's kid is hauling firewood, tripping over every third step. A dog barks. Somewhere a rooster crows for the second time today, clearly confused. You mutter a few unholy things at the snow piling on the edge of the thatch. A gust of wind throws it directly into your face. Excellent. Down below, your father shouts up a suggestion that is more criticism than help. Pull tighter. You shout back something non-committal and smile bitterly. It's a universal truth. Medieval parents never believe you're working hard enough. Doesn't matter the century. Eventually, your fingers go from numb to tingly, which is a worrying sign. You climb down, stepping onto the rickety ladder, one rung at a time, silently praying it doesn't splinter. Your boots land with a satisfying crunch on the snow-packed ground, and you immediately slip and fall on your behind. Not your most regal moment. Your sister laughs through the window. You consider throwing a snowball at her, but it would mean taking off your gloves. Not worth it. You dust yourself off, muttering a curse that involves goats and fate, and limp back inside. Inside the house smells like something vaguely edible. Maybe. There's a pot over the fire with bits of carrot and what you hope is chicken. Your mother stirs it like she's summoning warmth through sheer will. It's time for the morning routine. You start with the chamber pot. Yes, it's full. Yes, it's your turn. No, it doesn't matter that your soul left your body 15 minutes ago. The handle is wet and very cold. You try not to think about it. You carry it out behind the shed, where yesterday's deposit has already frozen into a tragic sculpture of suffering. Some historians argue that people in colder regions use slop pits dug into the frozen ground and covered with straw. But in truth, it was usually just a designated corner that froze solid and eventually got shoveled out come thaw. Congratulations, you are now part of that cheerful tradition. You rinse the pot in the stream out back, except today the stream is a solid ribbon of glass. You curse, not loudly, just enough for the trees to nod in sympathy. You chip at the ice with a stick until you can splash some water around and pretend it's clean. It's not. But it's cold enough to kill anything living in it, so maybe that counts. Back inside, you begin your version of washing. You take a cloth, dip it into a bucket of half-frozen water, and slap it across your face. It's not refreshing, it's punishment. But now your face feels awake in the way a person feels awake after being hit with a snowball. You scrub under your arms quickly because that water stings like betrayal and shake yourself off like a wet dog. Your teeth are covered in last night's stew. You grab a frayed twig and chew the end until it fans out. Congratulations, you've made a toothbrush. You scrub at your molars with all the enthusiasm of someone chiseling barnacles off a boat hull. Historians still argue whether regular dental hygiene was practiced by peasants. Some evidence shows twigs, salt, and ash were common. Others claim most folks simply didn't. Based on the breath of your uncle, you believe the latter. After brushing, you rinse your mouth with ale. Yes, again, it's the only liquid that won't freeze mid-swig. The burn means it's working right. Next, dressing. You're already wearing your under-tunic, which is just a long linen shirt that clings in all the wrong places. Over that goes your wool tunic patched more times than you can count. It smells faintly of smoke, sweat, and goat. Then leggings, if you're lucky, and wrappings around your calves tied with cord. The outer cloak is wool again, because layering is the only defense you have against the chill. Not fashion forward, but at least your limbs stay attached. Shoes. More like leather suggestions. Your boots have holes the size of thumbprints. You stuff them with straw and hope you don't lose a toe. Your little brother runs past you with a laugh. He's still barefoot. Kids are weirdly immune to cold. Or maybe he just hasn't figured out what frostbite is yet. You notice the pot bubbling on the fire. That means it's nearly time for the first meal of the day, or at least a warm cup of broth. You sit near the fire drying your damp sleeves, and your father joins you. He nods. That's all. Just a nod. But in medieval dad language, that's basically a hug. You sip your cup of broth slowly. It tastes like weak chicken tea with hints of ash. Delicious. The rest of the morning will be filled with chores, but for now you savor the moment's steam curling into the air, warmth soaking into your fingers, and a belly, just barely, not empty. You made it through another morning, which statistically speaking is kind of a miracle. The fire sputters as you toss in the last of the dry kindling. It gives a reluctant pop, like it's debating whether to stay alive. You're debating the same thing, because while the fire is your only real lifeline during a medieval winter, it's also your most finicky roommate, needy, temperamental, and always hungry. You watch it nervously. If it dies again, you'll have to beg the neighbors again. They didn't seem thrilled last time, and there's only so many times you can show up with a sheepish grin and frozen eyebrows before they stop opening the door. So you hover near the hearth, feeding it carefully dry twigs, broken bits of furniture, a splintered stool leg your father insists was already cracked. It wasn't. Smoke curls up toward the ceiling hole and then drifts right back down. Ah, perfect. The wind has shifted, coughing. You step back and fan the air with your tunic. A cloud of soot puffs into your face. Your eyes sting and your nose starts dripping. Not that you can tell the difference from the usual cold-induced faucet you've become. Your mother's behind you, poking at the pot suspended above the flames. It's today's stew again, which is yesterday's stew, plus whatever she found under the table. Some old turnip ends, maybe a bone, possibly something that once mooed. The smell is edible adjacent. You turn and warm your back to the fire, savoring the sting as heat tries to push the frost out of your spine. Your clothes smell like smoke. So does your hair. So does the pig. But it's a comforting kind of smoke, the smell of not dying. In many medieval homes, especially peasant cottages, the hearth was the literal and spiritual center of life. It was where food was cooked, hands were warmed, and stories were told. There was no chimney, just a hole in the roof, or sometimes not even that. The smoke hung in the air like an unwelcome spirit curling through every breath you took. Historians still argue whether constant smoke inhalation contributed to the notoriously short medieval lifespan. One camp says yes, the lungs of skeletons from the period show signs of chronic inflammation. Others point out that cold malnutrition and various plagues were probably doing most of the heavy lifting in the death department. You pull up a stool, or what's left of one, and settle near the fire, rotating like a roast chicken to warm all sides. Your fingers are thawed enough now to move, but that comes with a new problem. They hurt. You flex them slowly, feeling the sting of circulation returning like little bees trapped in your knuckles. There's a strange comfort in this pain. It means you still have fingers. The door creaks open, and your brother stumbles in, red-faced and puffing. He's holding a bundle of wet firewood, and swearing under his breath in that half-whispered way that suggests he thinks no one can hear him. He dumps it near the wall and stomps his feet. Snow scatters across the floor. You groan. He shrugs. Someone will have to dry the wood, which means stacking it near the hearth and hoping it doesn't mold before it burns. That someone is probably you. While your brother yells about slipping on a chicken, your father takes the fire poker and jabs at the embers. Sparks jump up like startled fleas. He squints at the flames, mutters something about needing more heat, then vanishes outside with an axe and a very determined scowl. You know what's coming next. Sure enough, he returns dragging a long, twisted log that could double as a witch's broom. It's barely chopped, still half frozen, but he jams one end into the fire anyway. It smolders pathetically, releasing a hiss of steam and a smell like burning cabbage. Greenwood, your mother says, disapproving. He ignores her. You all ignore each other, really. That's how winter works. It turns everyone into cold, tired ghosts who occasionally bump into each other near the fire. Your grandmother used to say that when the hearth fire goes out, so does the soul of the house. That always sounded poetic until the night it did go out and you spent 6 hours trying to warm a chicken under your tunic for body heat. The chicken did not enjoy it. Neither did you. That was the night you learned how hard it is to start a fire from scratch in the dead of winter. You'd tried flint and steel, but your fingers were too numb. The sparks landed in the wrong place. The dry grass was damp. The wind howled down the chimney hole like a banshee with asthma. After an hour, you wept. Not out of emotion. Your eyes had just given up trying to blink. Eventually, you managed a flame. It caught on a bit of old cloth, and from there, slowly, agonizingly, it grew. When the fire finally flared to life, your brother shouted, "Witchcraft!" and your mother just laughed for the first time in a week. Now you treat the hearth like it's sacred, because it is. You remember one weird neighbor who believed the fire itself had a name? He'd whisper to it, offer it crumbs of cheese, even scold it like a pet. You all laughed at him. But his fire never went out. Who's laughing now? The stew begins to bubble, and your sister appears with a bowl. She sniffs the air, wrinkles her nose, and asks, "Is it the same as yesterday?" Your mother nods. She sighs, but takes her bowl anyway. Hunger beats variety every time. You ladle some into your own bowl. It's watery with a vague brownish tint and floating chunks of mystery vegetable. You close your eyes and eat. It's warm. That's enough. The fire pops again, sending a spark toward the pig, who snorts indignantly and rolls over. Outside, the snow is beginning to fall. Again, fat flakes drifting down like the sky is shedding its skin. You know the fire will need feeding again soon. It always does. But for now, in this moment, it lives. And so do you. You're wrapped in every layer you own, and somehow it's still not enough. Wool tunic, second tunic, a threadbare overcoat that once belonged to your uncle or someone else's uncle. You stopped asking 2 scarves and a rough spun hood that scratches like a burlap nightmare. You're less person now, and more lump of cloth with eyes. And yet, the wind still finds you. It slips under your hem, slides down your collar, snakes into your sleeves like it's got a vendetta against warmth. You shiver so hard, your teeth click like dice in a cup. Welcome to the fine medieval art of layering against the cold. Your boots are stuffed with straw. Not fresh straw, mind you. This morning's straw pulled from the pig stall after a spirited debate with your younger brother about who had to do it. It doesn't help much. The frost still chews at your toes like they're trying to escape your body out of spite. Layering is more than survival. It's strategy. You tuck your undershirt into your leggings. You double wrap your belt to keep the wind from sliding up your sides. You knot the scarf, not once, but twice, tucking the ends down the front, like a nervous squirrel storing nuts. Historians mostly agree that medieval peasants owned very few pieces of clothing, 2 or 3 tunics at most, and if you were lucky, a thick outer cloak made of wool. Undergarments, linen if you weren't too poor. Socks, not so much. Instead, peasants wrapped their legs with woolen strips called weiningas. Fashionable numb. Effective, also no. But it was something. Your cloak is technically wool, but it has the consistency of a dish rag and the scent of wet goat. You shift it over your shoulder, and it rips a little at the seam. You swear softly, though your lips barely move, because they're dry and cracked. You reach for your gloves. They're not really gloves, just 2 pieces of leather stitched together at the fingers with enough holes to qualify as historically ventilated. The left one has a thumb. The right one gave up long ago. You stuff your hands in anyway. They still freeze, just more slowly. Your breath curls in front of your face. You imagine it as a ghost escaping your lungs, tired of the weather, tired of you. The pig watches you from inside the door, warm and smug. It's probably warmer than you. It sleeps under hay beside the fire. You, the supposed higher species, are out here preparing to collect sticks and fix a fence. The irony is noted. You trudge forward, your layers swishing like wet laundry. Every step is cautious. Beneath the snow lies ice, and beneath that, more regret. You once slipped so hard, you forgot your own name for a minute. Since then, you've learned to walk like a suspicious duck, knees slightly bent, eyes scanning for doom. Your neighbor waves at you with one gloved hand, the other gripping a bundle of branches. You nod back, both of you bundled beyond recognition. Everyone looks the same in winter, just eyes peeking out from beneath frost-bitten eyebrows. There's a joke someone told once. You know it's cold when even the rats are wearing mittens. You didn't laugh then, and you're not laughing now. You reach the edge of the woods, a line of twisted leafless trees that resemble disappointed old men. The wind moans through their branches, and you shudder. Not from fear, just the cold again. Always the cold. You start collecting branches, anything dry enough to burn. You test each by snapping it across your knee. If it cracks clean, it's good. If it bends like a wilted carrot, back to the ground it goes. As you work, you notice your fingers beginning to slow. You rub them together, trying to spark warmth. Nothing. You blow on them, but the air you exhale feels colder than the air around you. That's not a great sign. Frostbite isn't just something that happens to other people. It's not dramatic, no sudden pain or screaming. It's sneaky. First numbness, then tingling, then nothing. You clench and unclench your fists. You can still feel them, mostly. Once a man in the next village over lost 3 toes and half a thumb. He'd fallen asleep against a tree, woke up with blackened flesh and a look in his eyes like he'd seen death, and borrowed his boots. They treated it with hot coals wrapped in cloth. Also, urine, because why not historians still debate the effectiveness of medieval frostbite treatments? Some used warm compresses made of onion poultices. Others swore by bacon fat goose grease or strangely applying live snails. It's unclear whether these worked or just gave you something else to complain about. You collect enough wood to count as acceptable, then start the slow march back. The wind's picked up. It stings now, flinging frozen specks against your cheeks like you insulted its mother. You keep your head down, scarf pulled to your nose, hands curled inside your sleeves like turtles, retreating to their shells. You arrive home, red-faced, blinking, and victorious. The pig is still warm. You dump the wood by the door and step inside. The heat of the fire hits you like a kiss on the forehead. You stagger toward it and kneel, holding your hands out, letting the pain flood back into your fingertips. Ah, the burning, the pins, the needles. Welcome back, nerves. You peel off your gloves carefully, slowly. One of your fingers is white at the tip, just the tip. You rub it with your thumb, whispering the medieval version of sweet nothings. Don't fall off. Please don't fall off. You survive it. This time. Your sister offers you a bowl of warm broth. You take it gratefully, holding it like it's made of gold. Across the room, your father pulls his cloak tighter. Storm's coming. Of course it is. You slurp your soup, scarf still wrapped around your face, steam rising in curls around your forehead. You wonder what it would be like to own actual winter clothing, soft leather boots, thick mittens, lined cloaks. But that's a noble's fantasy. You make do, always do, and for now, you're layered, you're fed, and you're not dead. That counts. Your mother hands you the bucket like it's a royal gift, and you know what that means? It's water fetching time. You try not to groan because technically complaining is your brother's job today. But it doesn't stop the sigh that escapes your chest as you wrap your cloak tighter and step back into the great cold outdoors. You haven't stopped being cold since November. The chill has moved in, permanently claimed a corner of your soul, and started rearranging the furniture. Today's task: fetch water from the stream. Today's problem: the stream is frozen. This is not a surprise. It froze 3 weeks ago. The top is solid thick enough to skate on if you had skates. You don't. But under the ice, the water still flows. That's the good news. The bad news is that accessing it requires tools, patience, and a tolerance for suffering. You trudge through the snow which crunches underfoot like stale biscuits. The cold has hardened it into crusty layers that snap beneath your boots. The bucket bumps against your knee with every step like an unhelpful pet. By the time you reach the stream, the wind has already numbed your ears and bitten your nose. You kneel at the bank and reach for the iron wedge stashed behind a tree stump, your trusty icebreaker. It's rusted, slightly bent, and beloved. You begin to hack at the ice. 1, 2, 3. The sound echoes down the frost-hushed valley like a clock counting out your regrets. The ice gives a satisfying crack on the 4th strike. You keep going, carving a small opening, just big enough to dip your bucket through. It's not elegant, but it works. You crouch low, lower the bucket through the hole, and pray it doesn't slip and vanish into the current like last Tuesday. That bucket's probably halfway to France by now. Success. Water fills the bucket slowly, dark and freezing, sloshing against the sides as you haul it up. You stand. Your knees creak like wooden doors. Historians note that in winter, water fetching often became the most dreaded chore of the day. Wells would freeze at the top streams, became glass, and snow had to be melted indoors, requiring firewood that was already in short supply. Some villages built shared ice holes covered with planks to keep them accessible. Others simply drank beer instead. You stagger back toward the cottage with your prize 5 liters of pure, freezing liquid pain. The metal handle digs into your raw, red fingers. You switch hands, then switch again. It's a dance. A very cold, very unhappy dance. At the halfway point, you slip on a patch of ice and nearly baptize yourself in the name of gravity. The bucket sloshes violently. You whisper a medieval profanity at the sky and keep walking. When you finally return home, the warmth from the fire is like being hugged by an invisible grandmother. You set the bucket down with the care of someone placing a crown jewel on a velvet pillow. Your mother nods her approval. High praise. The water will be used for everything. Cooking, washing, drinking, if you're feeling lucky. It's filled with invisible things you try not to think about. Boiling helps. So does denial. Your sister scoops a ladleful into a pot and sets it on the fire. The steam curls upward, fogging the window shutter, and for a brief moment the house feels almost cozy. Then the bucket is empty again, because no matter how much water you bring, it's never enough. The washing needs water. So do the animals. And soon, someone will want tea. Not real tea, just hot water with leaves or dried apple peels. But it's warm, and that's all that matters. You groan. You don't mean to, but it slips out. Your father looks over and raises an eyebrow. You say nothing. He says nothing. But the implication is clear. You're doing another run later. Your boots are still damp from the snow. You remove them and place them near the fire upside down, with the hope that warmth will drive out the moisture. It rarely works. You'll put them on again tomorrow, and they'll be just as wet, just as cold, just as traitorous. In the corner, your brother is poking the pig. The pig grunts, unimpressed. You remember someone once said, pigs can smell truffles. You wish it could find your will to live. Across the room, your mother is scrubbing a cloth in a small basin. The water's gray and smells faintly of soap root and desperation. Laundry, such as it is, must still be done, even when your fingers are too numb to wring out a rag. She looks at you. Check the barrels. You nod wearily, because of course. You step back outside and cross the yard to where the water barrels stand like frozen sentinels. The lids are crusted with ice. You crack one open pier inside. The top layer is frozen solid. You take a stick and jab through the slush until you reach liquid. You fill a pitcher, careful not to scoop up too much ice. You carry it back, cradling it, like it might explode. Inside, your mother gives an approving grunt. She adds it to the pot and begins peeling an onion with the focus of someone preparing a delicate potion. Water is everything. Fire might keep you alive, but water keeps you human. You wash your hands. You scrub your bowl. You pour a little over the dirty cloth and wring it out. Every drop is earned. Every drop stings. You wonder how the nobles do it. Probably bathe in rose water with 3 servants fanning them and another pouring hot wine. Meanwhile, you're just proud the bucket didn't crack. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly avoided bathing or if that's a myth inflated by later propaganda. Some records suggest weekly washing with cloths and occasional full-body bathing, especially for the wealthy. For peasants, though, it was ice water and a prayer. You sit near the fire, fingers curled around a warm bowl of broth, and let the heat undo what the wind has done. The bucket waits by the door, already half empty. You don't look at it. You just sip your soup and pretend it's summer. The snow muffles everything. Footsteps, voices, even your thoughts. It turns the village into a quiet, frozen painting where nothing moves except you, and you only move because stopping means turning into something they find in spring and bury with minimal ceremony. Farming. That's over. The earth is asleep, hidden beneath 2 feet of icy indifference. The fields are skeletal and silent, furrowed like the brows of everyone around you. No crops to sow, no weeds to pull, just a long, bitter wait. But that doesn't mean there's nothing to do. Oh no. Winter just trades one kind of misery for another. This is the winter workload, and it's about fixing everything that broke during the harvest and didn't seem urgent until now. Your first job of the day, firewood. You knew it was coming. Everyone always knows it's coming. You eye the dwindling pile outside your door with dread. There was more. There's always more somewhere. But somewhere usually means deeper in the woods, under snow tangled in thorns, being guarded by wolves, or worse, bad memories. You grab your hatchet. It's blunt and cold and old. It's practically a family heirloom passed down from one generation of tired shoulders to the next. You trudge out into the woods, following a path you've walked 100 times, but still trip on every third step. Branches claw at your face. The snow sucks at your boots like a hungry bog at the edge of the woodpile. You begin your solemn task, splitting logs with the precision of someone who would rather be anywhere else. The wood resists at first, frozen through. You raise the axe swing and feel the shock rattle up your arms. Whack, crack, repeat. 1 hour in, and your nose is dripping, your fingers ache, and your legs are beginning to question their life choices. You've built a modest pile of split logs. Not enough. Never enough. Historians agree that winter labor was heavy, constant, and largely thankless. While fields lay fallow, survival hinged on preparation, chopping wood, mending tools, reinforcing walls, feeding animals, darning clothes. No one rested. Winter was not a pause. It was a reckoning. You haul your chopped wood back toward the house, each armload a test of balance and willpower. On the third trip, your boot slips and a log rolls directly into your shin. You do not cry, but the pig hears you swear and looks mildly scandalized. Inside your brother is darning socks. Correction, he is trying to darn socks. His idea of mending involves stabbing wool with a needle until something happens. You admire his optimism. Next on your list, patching the fence. Again, the snow has bent the wooden stakes into submission, and a gap near the edge means the neighbor's goats keep wandering over like they own the place. You gather rope, some spare branches, and your last remaining scrap of patience. It's slow work, cold work. Your fingers are clumsy, and the rope is stiff. You tie knots with the finesse of someone strangling a small ghost. Still by mid-afternoon, the fence stands. Barely. But it's upright, and that's all that matters. You head inside to check the door hinges. One is creaking ominously. You rub tallow into the joint, your version of maintenance. The door still groans, but now it groans politely. Your sister hands you a tunic with a ripped sleeve. You stare at it. Sewing is not your skill, but Winter doesn't care. Winter says, "You have hands. You have thread. You figure it out." So you sit by the fire needle, clutched in stiff fingers, and begin the delicate art of stabbing cloth with hope. The sleeve ends up a little lopsided. No one mentions it. You're all grateful. It's wearable. Evening arrives early. The light fades without warning, and the temperature drops like a stone off a tower. You light a tallow candle and carry it carefully to the storage shelves. It's time to inventory the pantry. Dried beans, 2 handfuls. Salted pork, 1 slab suspiciously green on one edge. Onions, shriveled but present. Apples, too soft in places, barley nearly gone, dried herbs, mostly dust. You sigh. You add, beg neighbor for more barley to tomorrow's list, along with fix roof patch and catch the chicken that escaped yesterday. Your mother is spinning wool in the corner, twisting it between her fingers with a rhythm that's both meditative and ominous. She doesn't look up when she says, "We'll need to make more candles." You nod, which means you will need to fetch tallow again. The work never ends. Even the animals have chores. The chickens must be fed and counted. One vanished last week. The pig needs fresh straw, which means mucking out the corner stall. You hold your breath, scrape, scoop, dump. By the time night fully sets in, you are exhausted. Not modern exhausted. Not I stayed up too late, scrolling, exhausted. This is bone-deep, muscle-weary, brain-flatlined, medieval exhausted. You sit near the fire, hands cradling a bowl of whatever passed for dinner. You sip slowly. The stew is mostly water, but it's hot. Your eyelids droop. Your body aches. But around you, the house is in order. The fence is patched. The water's fetched. The firewood is stacked. The door no longer shrieks like a banshee. The pig is asleep. And for now, that's enough. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants viewed winter as rest or punishment. There's evidence both ways. Some describe storytelling and crafts, even moments of peace. Others describe hunger, cold, and ceaseless toil. You know your answer, because tomorrow you do it all again. You wake up with a tingling sensation in your toes, not the good kind like when someone whispers you a secret or you're about to sneeze, but the terrifying kind, like your body's unsure whether your toes are still part of your body. You wiggle them, or try to. One moves. One is debating it. The rest have called in sick. It's not pain exactly, it's absence. That's what frostbite starts with. Not a scream, but a silence. You drag yourself toward the hearth, hoping last night's embers are still warm. You throw on wood like a desperate gambler, tossing his last coin on the table. A tiny flame catches. It glows orange, then yellow. You breathe again. You strip off your socks well, rags tied around your feet and held in place with twine, and inspect the damage. Your toes are pale, not ghostly white, but suspiciously close. You poke one. It's slow to react. That's not a great sign. You remember the village healer's advice, rub them gently, and don't use fire. She also recommended bacon fat, or goose grease, or in desperate cases, holding your feet next to a chicken. You go with option one, rubbing. You wince as sensation returns like a cruel joke. Pins, needles, tiny daggers. Still, it means blood's moving. You grab a scrap of cloth and wrap your feet tightly, then hobble to the pig and consider option three. The pig looks at you like it's not interested in your drama. Outside, it's still snowing. Of course it is. You throw on every layer again, and brace yourself for your next chore, helping your uncle with the cattle. Yes, the cattle. You're not rich enough to own any, but your uncle has 3, and that makes him practically royalty. He's asked for help, moving them into the byre, his barn-like shelter, because they're shivering, and one is looking at him like it's planning a lawsuit. You trudge across the village. It's a short walk. In summer, you could do it in 2 minutes. In winter, it feels like crossing a frozen desert with wind as your only companion and the occasional bird judging you from a snow-dusted branch. Inside the byre, the air is thick with the smell of wet hay cow breath and ammonia, but it's warm. Body heat from the animals fills the space like a natural furnace. It's unpleasant, yes, but you understand the appeal. You help your uncle coax the animals inside, using a mix of gentle shoves, bribes, and stern mumbling. One cow slips a little, its hooves skating on the packed ice, but catches itself with surprising grace. You, on the other hand, nearly fall twice. You spread new straw, refill the water trough with slush, and rub your hands together. One cow breathes on you. You breathe back. It's a moment. Historians note that in extreme winters, peasants often brought animals inside the home itself. Pigs, goats, chickens, sometimes even a cow, just to share warmth. It wasn't ideal, but when you're fighting death by cold, pride takes a back seat to survival. There was one family in a neighboring hamlet that let 6 chickens sleep on their hearthstone. One night a rooster stepped directly into the soup pot. It took 3 weeks before anyone noticed. You help your uncle reinforce the thatch above the byre, patching gaps where snow has started leaking through. It's not elegant, but it'll hold for now. You linger a little longer than needed, basking in the bovine heat before heading back. Your house is colder than the barn. The fire's still alive, barely. You throw on more wood and sit as close as you dare. The heat prickles your skin. You unwrap your feet again and check the toes. Still pale, but warmer. You smear a little bacon fat on the worst one. Your mother doesn't even blink. This is just what you do. Frostbite was never named as such in your world. It was just the cold sickness. A quiet, creeping punishment for lingering too long outside or forgetting to wrap your feet. There were whispers of people losing fingers in the dead of January. One man tried to warm his hands directly over the flame and ended up with burns and frostbite. Double win. You pour hot water into a wooden basin and soak your cloth socks, then hang them near the fire, watching as steam curls upward. The pig snorts, resettling against the hearth like it owns the place. You consider joining it, but there's only so much dignity you're willing to trade in one day. You reach for your needle again. A glove has torn at the seam. Your fingers still ache, but you stitch slowly. The thread tangles. You grumble. The thread breaks. You grumble louder, but eventually you finish. A small victory. Your brother enters, shaking snow from his shoulders. You've seen the dog. You haven't, and that's worrying. The village dog, not exactly yours, not as old Cranky and smarter than most of the adults. But even he's not immune to the cold. You sigh, pull on your boots, and step back out into the endless winter. You find him curled in the woodpile, shivering. You scoop him up and wrap him in your cloak. He smells like wet fur and old meat. You don't care. You carry him inside and set him by the fire. He whines once, then sighs, then sleeps. Later that night, as the wind howls and the roof groans, you lie awake, thinking about your toes. They still tingle, but they're still yours. You don't remember when the cow moved in. Maybe it was last Tuesday, or maybe it was the week before when the cold snapped so hard the water froze in the cup as you were drinking it. Either way, it's here now. Standing politely in the corner by the wall, steaming gently and chewing its cud, like this has always been its room too. No one questions it. The fire only does so much. The straw only insulates so far. And so, like every winter in living memory, the humans and the animals converge into one huddled, grumpy, steaming organism. Welcome to the medieval wintertime miracle of indoor livestock. The pig's already made itself at home, sprawled near the hearth like a warm, flat dog with hooves. The chickens flutter from beam to beam above your head, sometimes pooping directly into bowls, sometimes looking at you like they're paying rent. They aren't. Your mother tries to keep the place tidy. She does, but it's hard to sweep when the cow keeps stepping in the ashes and the goat keeps trying to eat the broom. She mutters under her breath a lot these days. You've stopped asking what she's saying. There's a certain rhythm to this shared space. The animals breathe heavy, their bodies radiating heat like small fires. Your little sister has taken to napping with her back against the pig, which snorts in its sleep but doesn't seem to mind. Your brother complains about the smell, but not when he's cold. Funny how flexible the human nose can be when the toes are in danger. Historians confirm that, particularly in Northern Europe, it was common practice for families to bring animals inside during the coldest months. Not in a barn, not in a separate wing, inside. Living, eating, and sleeping with cows, pigs, chickens, even the occasional donkey. They were heat sources, yes, but also security, and sometimes companionship. Lonely talk to the goat. You light a tallow candle and move carefully through the room, stepping over hay and poultry. The cow low moos as you pass. You pat its side. It's warmer than any blanket at night. The sounds blend into something between soothing and surreal. The soft snore of your father, the occasional fart from the pig, the gentle cluck of a dreaming hen. Someone coughs. Someone turns over. The cow sighs. You all shift, settle, and drift into the kind of sleep that's not restful, but necessary. And yet, with all the noise, you find it comforting. The animal's presence is a strange reassurance, proof that life persists, that something warm still lives beside you. You remember last winter, when the cow wasn't brought in. It had been a pride thing. We'll be fine, your father said. Animals belong outside. That lasted until January, when the frostbite took one of its ears and the chickens started roosting inside, whether you invited them or not. Lesson learned. This year, the boundaries collapsed early. The first night the cow stood by the door, mooing like a tenant with lost keys, your mother simply opened it and waved her in. Now you barely notice. You go about your tasks, mending clothes, stirring the stew pot, scooping hay into the corner. Everything happens in this shared, strange little ecosystem. You watch as your sister draws on the floor with a charcoal stick and a chicken pecks curiously at the corner of her blanket. You haven't seen the sky in 3 days. You crack the shutter and peer out. Gray, wind, snow, the kind that falls sideways and makes you question all your choices. You shut it again. Whatever's out there can wait. Inside, the air is thick with moisture and breath. You can see the condensation curling on the walls, like the house itself is trying to exhale. The pig gets up and waddles to its feed bowl. Your brother follows with a scoop of boiled roots. The two of them eat in silence, side by side. Later, you help your mother clean the hearth. The ashes are damp. Someone spilled water again, and the floor is dotted with hoof prints. You sweep, wipe, and mutter. You're starting to sound like your mother. You try to remember what it's like to live in a house without livestock. Was there a time the floor wasn't covered in hay? Was there a time when you didn't wake up to a rooster stepping on your face? You're not sure. At one point, your father opens the door to let in air. A blast of cold stabs everyone in the room. The cow huffs. The pig glares. The chickens lose their minds. Your father quickly shuts the door. Not worth it, he mutters. Everyone nods. You sit by the fire and take off your boots. One toe is blue again. You rub it without thinking, watching the cow chew in slow meditative circles. At least you're not outside. Historians still argue whether peasants liked sharing space with animals or simply tolerated it. Some suggest it was cozy, even spiritually comforting. Others claim the stench noise and constant stepping in things made it a last resort. You suspect it's both. After all, no one wants to be nose to nose with a goat at 3 a.m. But when it's that, or frostbite, the goat suddenly seems like excellent company. The candle burns low. The room grows darker. The fire settles into a low rumble. The animals sigh, snort, and shift. You lean back against a sack of straw and exhale. Not quite peace, but something close. You're warm. You're not alone. You're alive. You wake up coughing again. It's not a surprise. It's not even alarming anymore. It's just part of the morning, like stretching or putting on your boots or removing a chicken from your blanket. The air inside the house is damp and smoky, the kind of heaviness that clings to your lungs and refuses to leave. Your mother looks up at you from the hearth and asks the standard question. Still in your chest or moved to your head? You give the standard answer, both. She nods solemnly, as if confirming something sacred. We'll try onion socks today. You don't argue. Your throat burns. Your sinuses ache. Your nose is running faster than you are. You feel like someone scraped off the underside of a pig, and yet here you are, upright. That's half the battle in a medieval winter. You sit by the fire while she slices onions, sharp, white, mean-smelling things, and wraps the pieces in old cloth. She hands you 2 bundles and motions to your feet. You sigh. Off come the socks. On go the onions. You feel ridiculous. You smell ridiculous. But in a world without doctors, antibiotics, or lemon honey tea, this is medicine. Historians confirm that onion poultices were a common folk remedy for colds, fevers, and bad humors. The logic onions drew out illness, cleansed the blood, and warded off evil spirits. The same was said of garlic, mustard seeds, vinegar, and bafflingly boiled frog skins. Your grandmother once told you about a neighbor who cured a cough by stuffing goose feathers into his ears. It didn't work, but he did stop coughing, mostly because he couldn't hear himself. You sip hot broth, trying to ignore the burning in your chest. Your mother tosses a pinch of dried thyme into the fire. It smells like forest and hope. A little. Herbal medicine is all you have. You remember a time last year when a monk passed through the village with tiny vials of amber liquid. He claimed they were tinctures made from foxglove willow bark and something called dragon root. Your father traded him half a sack of barley for a bottle. It tasted like dirt and regret. Did it help? Maybe. Maybe not. Drink this, your mother says, handing you a cup of something warm, bitter, and green. You sip. It tastes like boiled weeds and disappointment. You grimace. She pats your shoulder. Meanwhile, your little brother has started coughing too. His is drier, higher pitched, with that tiny panic hiding behind it. Your mother pulls him close and checks his forehead. Warm, not burning, but warm. Bundle him, she says to you. You wrap him in the spare blanket, the one that smells faintly of pig and herbs. He whimpers once, then leans into you. You hold him tighter. He's annoying most days, but not now. Now he's just a child curled into a wool burrito and trying to breathe. Your father returns from outside, his face red with wind, and stomps the snow off his boots. He shakes his head. Storm's turning. Might be stuck in for days. You all go quiet. Getting stuck indoors means no trips to the healer in the next village, no fetching extra firewood, no checking on the neighbors. It means whatever you've got is what you've got. And what you've got is a pot of weak soup, a bag of onions, and an alarming cough. It's going to be a long few days. You gather more hay and stuff it into the gaps in the wall to block the wind. It doesn't help much. The cold still slithers in through every crack. Your mother says it's because the spirits of winter hate happy homes. You're not sure how happy yours is, but you light another candle just in case. Your brother falls asleep in your lap. His forehead is warmer now. You drape a cloth over his head and whisper a rhyme your grandmother used to chant. Cold in the nose, out it goes. Warm in the chest, let it rest. If it settles in bone, leave it alone. But if it walks to the soul, dig a hole. Comforting, isn't it? You try not to think about what the last line implies. Historians still argue whether medieval cold remedies were based in science or superstition. Some, like willow bark, a natural pain reliever, had legitimate effects. Others, like rubbing fermented fish on your chest or holding a live eel in your mouth, were less helpful. You try to fall asleep by the fire, but your nose whistles, your throat scratches, your toes tingle, your ribs ache when you breathe. The pig snores peacefully. You cough again. In the morning, your mother checks your tongue. Still coated, she mutters. That's bile or melancholy. You don't know if you're full of bile or melancholy. Maybe both. She tries garlic next. Crushed, mixed with animal fat, and rubbed on your chest. You smell like a curse, but your lungs feel slightly looser. Your father says it smells like dinner. You glare at him. You shuffle through the day half awake, half alive, your feet wrapped in onions, your chest greased like a roast. And somehow, you begin to feel slightly better. Maybe it's the garlic. Maybe it's the warmth. Maybe it's the hope. But mostly it's probably just that you're too stubborn to get worse. You cough less by sundown. Your brother is still warm, but sleeping. Your mother lets you take off the onion socks and replaces them with dry wool. The pig still smells better than you. But you're healing, kind of, enough to be ready for tomorrow's crisis. You're barely awake when the sound drifts through the village like a slow breath, soft, distant, and undeniably there. The church bells, they ring in the frost-bitten dawn like a reminder. Even in the cold, even in the coughing, even when your boots are frozen and you've only had broth and onion socks to keep you alive all week, God still expects you to show up. You roll onto your side and groan. The fire is low again. The pig has taken your blanket. A chicken is sleeping on your leg. Your nose is crusted shut, and your fingers are curled into frozen commas. And yet the bells continue, calling, reminding, demanding. You swing your legs off the straw mat teeth, already clenched in anticipation. Your boots go on reluctantly, still damp from yesterday. One toe feels like it might be an icicle now, but you decide not to investigate too closely. Denial is a valid form of pain management. You dress quickly. Sunday best. Ha! It's the same 2 layers as always, just brushed slightly cleaner. You wipe your face with a cold rag, tug a comb through your hair, and pretend that tidiness means piety. Your mother is already up, adjusting her head covering with one hand and steadying a clay cup in the other. She hands it to you. It's tea, or something like it, hot water with dried mint leaves. You sip it gratefully and feel your throat tingle. Outside, the snow crunches with the familiar complaint of tired feet. Other villagers emerge, blinking against the gray. Everyone looks the same, hooded, layered, weary. You nod at a neighbor. He nods back. No one smiles. It's too early for that. The church isn't far, but it feels like miles. Each step sends tiny shocks up your legs. Your breath curls in front of you like a smoke signal. The bells continue to ring. Historians note that church attendance was not optional for most medieval villagers. Whether by faith, fear, or force of habit, people trudged to services through wind, snow, and sleet. The church was both a place of worship and the center of community life, your one-stop shop for spiritual salvation, local gossip, and occasional bread handouts. You arrive just as the last bell tolls. The door is heavy, frost-rimmed, and difficult to push. Inside the church is no warmer. The stone walls sweat with cold. The wooden pews are hard and unwelcoming. The air smells of damp wool and candle smoke. You remove your hood, lower your scarf, and try to look reverent. The priest begins in Latin. You understand maybe one word in 10. He speaks with the energy of someone who has accepted frostbite as part of his salary. His breath fogs with each amen. You sit through the readings, the hymns, the sermon. Your knees ache from the cold. Your toes are numb, but your mind drifts. You think about the cow back home, probably warming your corner of the house right now. You think about the stew your mother left on the hearth. You think about the pig stealing your blanket again tonight. The priest tells a story about a saint who survived on snow and prayer. You snort softly. Try surviving on snow and onion socks, you think. That would be a miracle. Midway through, a child starts coughing. Everyone shifts, but no one turns. We all have the same cough. It's the sound of winter now. Near the end of the sermon, the priest lifts a small basket. Tithes. You dig in your pocket and find 2 dried beans and a wooden button. You offer the button. He nods solemnly. You are forgiven. The final hymn begins sung through chattering teeth. The sound is thin but determined. You join in voice, scratchy and uneven. It doesn't matter. The cold has humbled everyone. When it's over, you shuffle outside, blinking into the pale light. You pause in the snow, not ready to go home just yet. Despite the discomfort, despite the ice crystals forming in your eyelashes, the church visit has given you something. Not warmth, but stillness, maybe even purpose. You watch as the villagers disperse in quiet knots, talking, nodding, complaining about the weather, like it's a cousin who visits too often. You overhear a woman say her goat has started sleeping in her bed. Another says her son has grown a second cough. You head home slowly, letting the bells ring in your ears even after they've stopped. At the door, you're greeted by your sister, who holds up a chicken like it's a prize. It laid an egg, she says. You blink, then smile. Small miracles. Inside, the fire is still alive. The cow low moos. The pig has taken your seat. You squeeze in next to it and remove your boots. You hold your hands near the flame. The church bells are gone now, but you still hear them. And for the first time this week, the silence feels kind. Market day arrives not with excitement, but with dread. It's not that you don't want to go. It's just that everything about the experience is designed to remind you that you live in a frozen swamp with no money and worse, shoes. You wake before dawn, as usual, and stare at the bundle of goods you've been instructed to take: one chicken, alive; irritated, a small sack of dried beans, possibly haunted; and 3 turnips that have seen better days. You also have an egg from the heroic chicken your sister found yesterday. You pack it like it's gold. Your mother hands you a scrap of cloth with your target list, scribbled on it in charcoal, barley, candle wax, wool scraps, salt. She pats your shoulder and says, "See if you can trade for a bit of honey too. But don't give up the chicken." You nod solemnly. "Honey's a long shot. You'd have better odds trading for a dragon egg, but you'll try." You wrap yourself in every layer you own, tie the chicken into a wicker basket, and set off down the road, each step accompanied by the gentle thump-thump of turnips bumping together in your satchel. The market square is about 2 miles away, situated near the river, which is now a shining highway of ice. Along the way you pass other villagers, mostly people like you, dragging sleds, carrying bundles, herding reluctant geese. You arrive with cold cheeks, a sore shoulder, and a chicken who has decided to start molting out of spite. The square is already filling with carts and crates. Stalls made of rough boards and old cloth lean against each other like sleepy drunks. Vendors stand hunched beside their wares, blowing into their hands and trying to look friendlier than they feel. This is not a festive scene. It is, however, a scene. You navigate the market slowly, peering at piles of goods, onions, so dry they rattle slabs of salted fish that look like punishment wool, that smells like it still remembers the sheep. You hear a man shouting about miracle bones that cure coughs, toothaches, and unwanted pregnancies. You give him a wide berth. Your first offer of the day, a woman offers you 2 onions for 1 turnip. You blink at her. She adds, "They're good onions." You sigh and move on. Historians note that medieval markets weren't just places to buy and sell, they were ecosystems of barter-haggling gossip and mild threats, especially in winter, when coin was scarce and everyone was hungry. Trades got creative. Turnips for firewood, eggs for thread, socks for favors. Occasionally, if no one was looking, favors for favors. You stop at a stall run by a man with a beard so icy it looks like a weapon. He's selling candle wax, and you desperately need some. You offer the egg. He snorts. "Half a lump for an egg." You hesitate. A full lump would be fair, but you're not in a position to argue. You nod, and the deal is done. He tosses you the wax like it's a pebble. You cradle it like a newborn. Next, salt. You head toward the woman with the big cloak and the big attitude. She knows you. She knows everyone. Her prices are high, her standards higher. "Got anything good?" she asks without looking up. You hold up a turnip. She laughs, not kindly. You hold up the beans. She squints. You end up trading half the beans and the last turnip for a small sack of coarse salt that smells faintly of fish. You don't ask why. You tuck it into your satchel and reward yourself with a deep breath, which you immediately regret. It's like inhaling a cloud of frozen cabbage and wet wool. Your final stop, wool scraps. The vendor is old friendly and has one working eye. He eyes your chicken. Nice bird. She bites, you say, just in case. He grins. I like her. You negotiate. It's hard. He wants the whole chicken. You want to keep the chicken and your dignity. In the end, you give up the remaining beans and one of the less injured turnips for a handful of wool strips. He throws in a spool of thread out of pity. The honey, no luck. Everyone wants it. No one has it. As you prepare to leave, a girl your age sidles up and asks if you'll trade your candle wax for a small mirror. You stare at the mirror. It's the size of your palm, cloudy with scratches, but it reflects enough light to remind you what your face looks like. You say no. You need the wax more than vanity. But for a moment, you wonder. You trudge home, goods secured. The wind has picked up, and your scarf is stiff with frost. The chicken is quiet, now either asleep or plotting. Back home, your mother unpacks your haul and grunts her approval. She hands you a slice of dried apple as a reward. You chew slowly, savoring every grain of sweetness. You watch as she sets the salt aside, melts the wax, and starts shaping it into candles, using a spoon and an old mold. Your brother pokes the chicken. It flaps at him. Balance is restored. You've brought back warmth, light, and flavor. No money changed hands. No receipts needed. Just a dance of desperate exchanges under a gray sky. Historians still argue whether medieval markets were efficient or chaotic. You know the answer. They were both. But you survived it. You bartered. You returned. And tonight there will be stew with salt light to see by and wool to stitch another glove. Not bad for a day at the frozen bazaar. The sun sets, but the day isn't done. Not by a long shot. You duck back into the house, arms loaded with firewood from the rapidly shrinking pile. The door creaks, chickens scatter, and a rat makes eye contact with you from the rafters before scurrying away like a shady landlord checking on unpaid rent. You step inside and take a breath, and then immediately regret it. Because this friend is the indoor nightmare trifecta: smoke lice and rats. The air is thick, not warm thick, thick, thick. You can practically chew it. The smoke has sunk low, hovering near head height, like a lazy ghost that doesn't want to leave. There's no chimney. Remember, just a small hole in the roof that may or may not be functioning today. The fire hisses defiantly, sending up curls of gray that refuse to go anywhere helpful. You cough. Again. Of course you do. Your mother swats at the air with a broom, not to clear it, but to feel like she's doing something. The smoke doesn't care. It simply swirls around the broom and settles into your eyes like it pays rent. Your sister lights a new tallow candle. The smell adds another layer to the atmosphere, hot fat, with a side of, was that sheep? Your clothes cling to you, not from warmth, but from days, weeks of continuous wear. Bathing in winter is reserved for the brave, the foolish, or the fevered. And so your tunic has developed a personality of its own. The kind of personality that might scare away bears. You scratch your arm absently and then stop. Oh no, not again. You lift your sleeve and squint. Tiny movement, a small determined parade of something unwelcome. Lice. They're back. Or maybe they never left. Historians confirm that lice were as common as dirt in the medieval world. Combs made of bone or wood were used to pick them out. Some folks powdered their heads with ash or rubbed garlic into their scalp. Others shaved everything off and wore caps. You don't have time for any of that. You reach for your lice cloth and start the familiar ritual: rub, shake, mutter, a prayer, scratch again. It's not a solution, but it's something. Maybe tomorrow you'll try vinegar again. Last time it just made you smell like pickled despair. The pig grunts and rolls over its back, now pressed firmly against the wall. The cow shifts its weight in the corner, snorting like it just had a bad dream. You can't blame it. You're living in one. You hear a squeak, not from the pig or the chicken, a different squeak, higher, faster, familiar. You glance toward the rafters. Rats. They live up there now. They have their own society, maybe a government. You once caught 2 of them fighting over a bit of dried apple, and honestly, it was more organized than last week's village council. You try not to think about the sack of barley near the wall. It's tied shut, raised off the ground, and probably already half stolen by tiny hands. You consider yelling, you consider bargaining. Then you remember they don't speak your language and you're afraid of what they'd say if they did. One jumps from a beam and lands on the table. Your sister screams. The rat screams. You all scream. It runs. Your father swipes at it with a boot. It escapes under the bench, triumphant. You put a pot over the barley sack just in case. Not because it'll stop them, but because it feels like something. A gesture of dignity. Dinner is soup again. Same pot, same turnip, different mood. You eat slowly, watching the flickering candlelight dance on the walls. Your back itches. Probably lice, or possibly fleas. You've learned not to ask too many questions. Later, while everyone's winding down for the night, you hear your brother whisper to your sister, "What if we catch a rat and keep it as a pet?" You sigh loudly. Your mother gives him a look. He drops the idea. You lay out your sleeping mat near the fire, adjusting it so you're far enough from the pig, but close enough to feel the heat. The smoke drifts down again. You blink it away. You scratch again. The night begins not with peace, but with negotiations. Your sister claims your spot is warmer. Your brother says the cow stepped on his blanket. The chicken flutters overhead and lands on your shin. Someone farts. Someone coughs. A rat scurries across the beam and stops to stare at you. You stare back. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants truly suffered as much from pests as the stories claim. Some accounts suggest they lived in mutual tolerance, even admiration. Others insist the war was daily, eternal, and lost. You don't know who's right. All you know is it's dark, it's smoky, it's itchy, but it's also home. You shift, scratch, exhale, and listen as the cow snores. You blink awake in near darkness, and for a moment, you're not sure what time it is. Then you remember it's always dark now. That's the whole point. In winter, light isn't so much a feature of your day as a brief rumor. You're lucky if the sun lasts from breakfast to stew. But today there is no breakfast. Not yet. Just you awake in the deep blackness, wondering if your feet still exist beneath the pile of scratchy wool and one incredibly territorial pig. You lift your head. The fire's down to a soft red glow. The candle burned out sometime after you dozed off, and the window, just a slit in the wood, really reveals a sky still heavy with night. Welcome to the 16-hour stretch known as medieval nighttime. There's no bedtime and no real sense of morning. It's just you, the dark, and your brain, which has decided now is the perfect time to worry about everything. Is the roof leaking? Did the rats find the barley? Are your toes still attached? Was that sound the cow or your father? You lie still, trying to keep warm while not inhaling too much smoke. The fire isn't hot enough to comfort you, but it's smoky enough to give you that classic winter lung sting. You roll over, clutching your blanket tighter, and stare into the dark. Time doesn't pass here. It settles, like snow, slowly, weightily. Historians note that in the Middle Ages, sleep wasn't done in one solid block. People often woke in the middle of the night, called first sleep and second sleep, to think, pray, tend fires, or just sit in the dark and wonder why they're not asleep. It sounds poetic when you read about it. It feels less so when you're living it. Eventually, your brother coughs. Then someone farts. Then the cow shifts and kicks the wall. You sit up, your hair staticky, your blanket tangled, your sense of peace completely gone. You light a small candle with a shaking hand. The glow is feeble, but enough to see your breath misting in the air. You grab the kettle and shuffle to the fire. You prod the embers until one flares, then carefully build it back with twigs and hope. The fire groans to life. You set the kettle on and wait. Hot water takes forever in winter, longer than forever, somehow. You watch the kettle like it's going to sprint away if you blink. Eventually, you pour the steaming water into a wooden cup and drop in a scrap of dried herb, something minty. You sit cross-legged, cupping it in both hands, and sip slowly. The heat spreads through your chest like a secret. You exhale. This right here is the only peace you'll get all night. Around you, everyone else shifts and murmurs. Your sister mumbles in her sleep. The pig grumbles. The candle flickers in the draft from the wall. You count the boards, listening for new creaks, new signs that the wind has found another way in. Time continues to settle. You reach for your mending pile. The last candle stub is gone, and you're using a sliver of wax in a saucer. You squint at the tear in your glove, thread your needle with frozen fingers, and start stitching. It's hard to describe the mood of these hours. Not quite fear, not quite boredom. Something in between, like your soul is pacing. The silence isn't silent either. It's full of whispers, the rustle of straw, the snap of a log, the shifting of livestock. It's a live kind of quiet. You don't feel alone, but you're not exactly among people either. You finish your mending, you drink the last of the hot water. You poke the fire again, gently, like you're trying to wake a sleeping bear without getting mauled. And then you lie back down. It's still not morning. You stare at the ceiling where the rat civilization continues its midnight operations. One skitters across the beam, another drops a tiny object. You hope it wasn't food. You hope it wasn't something worse. Eventually, your eyes close, not because you're relaxed, but because your body gives up. You drift into second sleep, the kind that never quite reaches your bones. A rooster crows too early. You consider murdering it. Then it crows again. Your sister stirs. Your mother sits up. Someone farts. Again. There's always one. It's morning, sort of. The light peeks in just barely through the shutter. The fire has settled back into embers. You sit up, groaning, already sore from lying on too many lumps and not enough padding. Outside, the frost waits. Inside, the animals breathe. You stretch, rub your eyes, and think, only 8 more weeks of this. Give or take. The first sip burns your throat in the best way. It's warm, sharp, and slightly sour. You lower the cup and feel the familiar sting of the morning breeze on your nose. You're halfway between a wince and a smile. This isn't water, it's ale. And at this point in the winter, you're not drinking it for pleasure. You're drinking it because it's warmer than snowmelt, safer than well water, and let's be honest, just numbing enough to get you through another day. You're not alone either. Everyone's drinking something. Your mother has a mug of mead she acquired from the neighbor in exchange for mending a torn shirt. It's thick and sweet and makes her slightly more tolerant of the cow stealing her spot by the fire. Your father prefers small beer, barely alcoholic but safer than the stream, and insists it clears the lungs. It does not. It just makes him burp with authority. Even your sister, barely old enough to tie her shoes, has a weak mug of cider warmed with cloves. It's festive, almost. If you close your eyes and imagine hard enough. The truth is, you all drink to stay warm. Historians confirm that in the medieval period, alcoholic drinks were a daily staple, not just for adults, but often for children too. With unsafe water sources and long bitter winters, ale and cider were considered essential survival tools. You weren't drinking to party. You were drinking because the alternative might be dysentery, or worse, sobriety in this cold. You cradle your cup and take another sip. The bitterness fades, replaced by a faint warmth in your chest. Not enough to change your mood, but enough to notice. You lean closer to the fire, careful not to knock over the pot, which is bubbling with something that smells like wet roots and desperation. Your brother, cheeks already red from the cold, pulls a flask from inside his tunic. "Where'd you get that?" you ask. He shrugs. "Traded a chicken feather and a smile." You stare at him. He grins. "Don't drink it all," you mutter. He does anyway. By late morning, the effects start to show. Not drunkenness, exactly. Just less pain. People move a little easier. The complaints grow funnier. Even your father makes a joke, something about the pig being warmer than your mother, and survives it. You smile for the first time today. Your mother rolls her eyes, but doesn't argue. There's something undeniably communal about winter drinking. You pass cups around, tell stories, laugh at things that aren't funny. You talk about warmer days like they're real and not just something you invented in a fever dream. Someone brings up Yule, the festival, just passed. You all groan. It was supposed to be festive. Candles, dried apples, maybe a sweet loaf if someone had spare flour. But this year, the bread was burnt, the apples were chewy, and the singing was off-key. The goat got loose and trampled the table. Your uncle tried to dance and sprained something important. You still laugh when you think about it. And laughter is worth something. You sip again. The ale's gone lukewarm, but you don't mind. It's not about the drink, really. It's about the pause, the short window where your toes don't hurt, and your brain isn't whispering about the roof and the rats and the water barrel that cracked again last night. You glance over. Your sister is asleep with her head on the pig's belly. Your mother is humming. Your father is whittling something that may or may not be a spoon. It might be a small misshapen sword. No one asks. The cow chews slowly, like she's been drinking too. Historians still debate whether mead and ale truly helped people endure winter, or if it simply dulled the edge of their awareness long enough to survive it. Some argue that beer was central to social cohesion. Others say it was just fermented sadness. You sip again. Probably both. By midday, the buzz fades, but the warmth lingers. You get up, stretch, and return to your chores. Hauling wood, checking traps, untangling twine from the chicken's leg. The cold is still there. The wind still bites. Your gloves are still useless. But something in you is steadier now, looser. When the fire flares unexpectedly and your brother screams, "Witchcraft," you laugh. And it's not forced. You share the last of the cider in the evening. No one wants to finish it, but no one wants to waste it either. You pour it into tin cups, pass it around toast, to making it to Thursday. You don't know what day it is. It might not be Thursday. It doesn't matter. You toast anyway. Later, as the darkness folds back over the room, you sit near the hearth with one last cup. It's mostly warm water and faint residue now, but you sip it like it's treasure. The pig snuffles. The rat above you sneezes. The cow sighs. And you lean your head back against the wall watching the candlelight flicker. You're tired, but you're warm. And tonight that's enough. You're sitting by the fire poking the same root in a pot of stew for the third time when your sister leans over and whispers, "Is it today?" You glance at her. She grins. "The festival." You blink. "Oh, right. The Midwinter Festival. That long-promised, much-hyped, often delayed excuse to pretend you're not all cold, itchy, half-starved, and sharing sleeping quarters with poultry. A tradition, a distraction, a candlelit tantrum with turnips and bad singing. And yes, today's the day." You sigh, stand up, stretch your aching back, and prepare yourself mentally for a celebration held entirely in wool and forced optimism. First comes the decorating. You bring in some pine boughs because pine still exists and its smell briefly tricks your brain into thinking you're somewhere nice. Your sister ties bundles with twine and hangs them above the hearth. You try not to laugh when one falls directly onto the pig, who snorts and resumes chewing your shoe. Then the food. There's not much. One wrinkled apple, a carrot with personality, a chunk of stale rye bread that may or may not be possessed. Your mother adds dried herbs to the pot and calls it a festival stew. It smells better than usual. It also smells exactly like yesterday. You help set the table, which is really a plank on 2 crates. Someone brings out the good bowl. It's just a bowl with one fewer crack. Historians point out that medieval winter festivals were not about abundance. They were about resilience. Pagan traditions blended with Christian ones, all wrapped around a shared desire to mark time, survive darkness, and pretend things were okay for just one day. And today, you try. You even light 2 candles instead of 1. The room brightens by at least 8%, enough to see your sister's crooked smile and your brother's sock, just one that someone decorated with a charcoal star. Your father begins the annual speech. It's not a great speech. Mostly mumbled thanks for fire, food, family, and not being dead yet. You raise a mug of hot ale. "To survival," he says. "To soup that didn't burn this time," your sister adds. "To the pig who still smells better than Dad," your brother whispers. Laughter, actual laughter, not forced, not bitter, just warm. You eat slowly, savoring the carrot like it's roast duck. You chew the apple slice and pretend it's fresh. The bread. You dunk it in stew until it softens into something edible. Then, of course, comes the entertainment. This consists of your brother juggling 3 potatoes and dropping 2. Your mother humming a tune she only half remembers. Your father attempting to sing and forgetting the words halfway through. You clapping along like it's the best show you've ever seen. Your sister insists on a game of riddles. She asks, what has no door, no key, no roof, yet grows inside? The answer is an egg. But your brother yells our house, and everyone agrees it's close enough. Someone brings out the dried apple rings, saved from early autumn. You each get one. You nibble them slowly, pretending they're candied pears. You let the sweetness sit on your tongue like luxury. The pig wanders into the middle of the room and flops down dramatically. That's his dance, your sister says. More laughter, more warmth. The fire crackles. The wind outside hammers at the walls as if annoyed it wasn't invited. Your father tells a story. Not a real one, just something about a goat who climbed onto the church roof and refused to come down until it was made bishop. Your brother laughs so hard he chokes on stew. Historians still argue whether peasants had time for winter festivities or whether that's just romanticized fiction. But you're here, and you're doing it, with candlelight, barely edible food, and one decent joke about a goat. You sit back full, in a way that isn't just about food. There's a fullness in your chest, something like warmth, something like family, something like relief. The celebration ends not with fireworks or applause, but with yawns. You help stack bowls. You feed the last log into the fire. You put the leftover stew back on the coals to keep warm for tomorrow. The candles sputter. The laughter fades. But for one short evening, the cold stayed outside. And that's the point. You lie down beside the hearth, wrapping yourself in your blanket, still smiling. The pig farts. Your sister giggles in her sleep. You whisper a thanks into the flickering shadows, whether to God the trees or the goat bishop. You're not sure. But you're here, still here. You wake up to the sound of someone complaining, loudly. It's your father. The fire's too low. His toes are cold. The stew's too thin. The pig is in his spot again. And worst of all, his wine is lukewarm. You lie there for a moment, absorbing the absurdity, because while you're curled under a scratchy wool blanket with straw in your hair and a mouse staring at you like it's owed rent, he is whining that his precious spiced wine isn't hot enough. You sit up, rubbing your eyes, and that's when you remember you're not in your own house anymore. You've been sent up to the manor this week to help in the kitchen, your family's small way of paying back taxes and offering labor during winter. You're what they politely call an extra pair of hands, but you know the truth. You're free help with frostbite. The manor house is different. There are actual rooms, walls that don't leak, a hearth in more than one place, and rugs, actual rugs. You wanted to lie down and kiss one, but a scullery maid glared at you, so you didn't. You've been peeling root vegetables for 2 days straight. Your hands smell like parsnips and shame, and today you've been tasked with heating wine for Lord Always Cold's midday warming. You head into the kitchen, which is, let's be honest, a miracle of medieval architecture. It has shelves. It has pots that aren't cracked. The fire stays lit without threatening to smoke everyone to death. The cook even has salt in 2 colors. You find the wine cask. You ladle some into a pot, set it over the fire, and throw in a few crushed cloves and a scrap of dried orange peel. You don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but it smells expensive. That's usually enough. You bring it to the Lord, careful not to spill a drop. He sips. He grimaces. Too warm, he says. You say nothing. But in your head, you say several things. He dismisses you with a wave of his bejeweled hand. You bow slightly and retreat. Back in the kitchen, you exhale through your nose. The cook hands you a piece of bread with actual butter on it. You chew slowly, savoring every bite. It's the best thing you've eaten in weeks. And you begin to notice something else, the Lord's family. They're complaining constantly about everything. My hands are chapped. The daughter moans even though she's wearing imported gloves. The snow is dirty, someone says. I heard the stable boy sneeze twice. Should we burn the hay? You overhear a discussion about whether the goose this year is fat enough to be festive. Meanwhile, your family's celebrating a root vegetable that didn't rot. Historians have long noted the difference between noble and peasant winters. Nobles had furs, food stores, and servants. They hosted banquets, sipped wine, and read poetry by firelight. Peasants. They shoveled snow, burned furniture, and hoped their pig didn't eat their boots. And yet, here's the strange part. You kind of miss your pig. The manor is warmer, cleaner, more predictable, but it also feels hollow. No laughter, no shared stew, no ridiculous goat stories, just boredom, bitterness, and 100 rules. You finish your chores. The cook thanks you. The maid tells you not to touch the silver again. You nod, take a slice of dried pear from the scraps, and slip out the back door. The walk home is cold but freeing. When you return, your brother is hanging upside down from the rafter again. Your sister is drawing with soot on the pig. Your mother is yelling. Your father is asleep with a potato on his chest. You smile. Home. Sure, the fire's weak, and there's a dead mouse in the water bucket, but it's yours. And at least when the stew is thin here, no one pretends it's rustic. You add a few logs to the fire. The warmth feels real, earned. You glance out the window, just a slit in the wood, and think about the Lord and his wine. You hope it's still lukewarm. It starts as a quiet thump above your head. You ignore it. It's probably a rat again, or your brother throwing something at the ceiling for reasons only he understands. But then there's another thump, heavier, slower, and you feel a faint vibration down through the rafter, into the wall, into your bones. You look up. A snow clump slides down the thatch outside and crashes just past the shutter with a damp, muffled whump. You exhale slowly. It's not fear exactly. It's something colder. Because deep down, you know what this is. The snow is getting heavy. And your roof, your poor, sagging patchwork roof, it's fighting for its life. You throw on your cloak and rush outside. The sky is gray, flat, and thick with falling snow. It's the kind of snow that doesn't flurry. It presses. Heavy flakes, fat and silent, coating everything like a sleepy avalanche. You trudge around the house to check the worst spot, the northeast corner. It's sagging. You can see the sag. The thatch has dipped just enough to catch snow, and now it's holding on to it like a toddler with a handful of trouble. You run to get the ladder. It's frozen to the shed wall. You kick it. It gives way dramatically. You prop it up, climb slowly, and begin clearing snow with your hands, because the shovel is buried somewhere in the barn under 2 angry chickens and a coil of rope you haven't untangled since October. You scoop. The snow is wet, heavy, reluctant to let go. Each handful is a reminder of how bad this could get. Because if the roof caves in, and sometimes it does, you don't just get cold, you lose everything. The fire, the food, the straw beds, the salt, the pig, the chicken maybe. And no one is coming to help fix it. Everyone else is dealing with their own roof. Historians note that in harsh winters, collapsed thatch roofs were tragically common. The combination of wet snow, poor construction, and freezing temperatures created the perfect recipe for disaster. Some households added branches or poles inside the rafters to help brace the weight. Others prayed loudly. You keep scooping. Your fingers go numb. Your cloak gets soaked. A clump of snow falls down the back of your tunic and makes you reevaluate every decision that led you here. Suddenly the ladder shifts. You grab the thatch and curse. Not loudly. Just enough for the pig to look up from the doorway, concerned. You climb down, panting, red-faced. Covered in snow, you step back and survey your work. It's better, not great, but it might hold. You think. You hope. You return inside to warm up and find the family rearranging everything again, just in case the roof doesn't hold. Your sister is dragging a blanket toward the corner where the snow was already leaking last week. Your father is tying rope from one rafter to another, like it's going to stop physics. The cow is in the middle of the room now, the warmest spot, your mother says, nodding at it like it's a fireplace. Your brother suggests sleeping under the table tonight. You don't hate the idea. You patch a hole in the ceiling with bundled straw and old cloth, working by candlelight while flakes sneak through like tiny spies. Then comes the crack. Not a big one. Not yet. Just a sound like a tired groan followed by a slow drizzle of powder into the stew pot. Everyone freezes. The fire crackles. You all stare upward. Your mother lifts the pot off the hearth. No one says anything, because if you talk about it, you make it real. So instead, you eat dinner in silence. The stew is watery, the bread is dry, the roof is sulking above your heads like a sullen cloud that lives indoors now. Your father clears his throat. Could be worse. Your mother raises an eyebrow. The pig's still dry. You all look at the pig. He blinks slowly, approving. You sleep with your boots on just in case. You line your bed with extra straw, wrap your cloak around your ears, and lie awake, listening to every creak, every shift of snow, every phantom sound. You dream of a roof made of stone, or steel, or magic. But in the morning, it's still there, mostly. A few clumps fell, a beam cracked. But the fire's still burning, the pot is still upright, and the chicken is still alive, and still not laying eggs. You exhale, half laugh, half sob. You survive the night. You survive the roof. Today you'll reinforce it again. Add more straw. Move the table. Say a few choice words in its general direction. But for now, you just sit by the fire. Snow melting off your shoulders, steam curling up from your boots, and you whisper the most medieval of winter blessings. Please, just hold one more day. The wind has stopped. not just slowed, stopped. You notice it before you even open your eyes. The usual whistle around the window, the soft moan through the rafters, the rustle of snowflakes dragging across the thatch, it's all gone, replaced by a silence so complete it feels thick, suspicious even. You sit up slowly. It's still dark, but not pitch black. A faint gray glow creeps through the wooden shutter, and the air in the room feels paused. Even the pig is quiet, which almost never happens unless it's asleep or planning something. You whisper to your brother. Nothing. You poke your sister. She rolls over and grumbles something about jam, which is optimistic but irrelevant. You step outside, and the world is still. Snow covers everything like a frozen canvas. The roofs, the trees, the paths all blanketed in white, so perfect it feels staged. Not a footprint, not a single trail from a rat or a wayward chicken. Just silence, broken only by the crunch of your boots as you take a few steps forward. You glance up at the sky. It's dull, pewter, heavy, and close, but it's not snowing, not yet. You turn back toward the house and realize something deeply unsettling. You miss the noise, the wind, the moaning, the creaking, the complaint of old boards and damp walls and frozen hinges. They were awful, but they meant something was happening. This feels like waiting for a blow you don't see coming, and it's doing things to people. Your father has grown twitchy. He stares at the walls more than usual. He clears his throat, forgets what he was saying, then starts sharpening a stick for no reason. Your sister tried to braid the pig's tail into a heart yesterday. Your brother drew a face on a potato and named it Lord Spudrick. They now argue regularly. Your mother keeps rearranging the same 4 spoons. Welcome to cabin fever. Historians refer to it more politely, psychological strain induced by environmental stasis. But you know better. It's what happens when snow traps you indoors for so long that you start talking to the fire and expecting it to answer back. This morning your uncle stopped by, on foot, in the snow, without his boots. He said he just needed a change of walls. Then he sat by your fire for 3 hours, in silence, staring at the candle before muttering, "I miss walking uphill and trudging off again." You're not surprised. Last week you caught your cousin arguing with the chicken. Not about anything real. About philosophy. You asked who won. He said, "Still debating." You start noticing things, like the way the cow chews in 3 rhythms, chomp, chomp, long pause. You find yourself chewing the same way without realizing it, or how the floor creaks only when you step exactly on the knot in the wood by the hearth. So you test it 23 times, or how your brother has developed a very serious feud with the broom, which he says stares at him. There are games, of course. Riddles, thumb wrestling. Guess the smell retired after 3 horrible rounds, but none of it really helps, because the days are too short, the nights are too long, and your mind has run out of new. You try to write something with a bit of charcoal on a strip of bark, maybe a story, maybe a poem, but all you get is cold, itchy pig fart again. Art. Even the animals are acting off. The pig growls at the wall for a full hour. The chicken has decided the windowsill is its personal fortress and pecks anyone who approaches. The cow. She's moved herself to the middle of the room and stares into the fire like it owes her something. You've tried cleaning everything, then re-cleaning, then organizing, then sitting in absolute silence for 45 minutes, staring at a snowflake melting down the inside of the window. And when you laughed at nothing yesterday, that's when you knew. You have officially gone strange. Everyone has. This is what no sunlight and too many turnips will do to you. Historians still argue whether cabin fever really affected medieval people the way it does modern ones. Some say they were more resilient, used to isolation, better at accepting hardship. Others say absolutely not. They went just as weird, just without writing about it. You believe the second camp. You try to reset yourself. A deep breath, a walk, a shovel in your hand. You head outside and begin digging a trench to nowhere. Just you and the snow. Digging like a man on a mission that doesn't exist. You name the snow piles. You assign them personalities. You pretend you're building a moat. And for some reason, you feel better. You come back inside. Your mother hands you tea. Your sister is humming a song she made up about socks. Your father is sharpening a second stick. And the pig is wearing a cloth hat someone made from old pants. No one mentions it. No one laughs. You just sit together, humans and animals, in the warmth of the fire and the glow of the candle, each of you cracked in your own way. But you're together and you're surviving, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough to keep the weirdness from turning into madness, at least for one more night. You wake up to birdsong, not a lot of it, not the loud chirping symphony you remember from spring, just a single note, tentative, almost confused, as if the bird itself isn't sure it should be singing yet. You lie there, eyes still closed, trying to decide if you imagined it. Then it comes again, a soft trill drifting down through the shutter, cracks like the world has remembered itself. You sit up slowly, your breath still mists in the air, but the sting is gone. The hearth is still glowing faintly. The pig is snoring into your shin. The cow has rolled onto her side and is breathing steadily. Even the chicken is quiet, blinking at the window with something that might actually be curiosity instead of rage. You stand pull on your boots and open the door. And for the first time in months, the snow isn't falling. It's still everywhere, of course thick on the roofs, crusted in the ruts of the paths, clinging to the trees. But the sky above is blue, not dark gray, not ash-colored, blue. You squint into it like someone trying to remember a dream. Sunlight glints off the ice. The world sparkles. You step outside, slowly, like it might vanish if you move too fast. There's warmth in the air, not much, just a whisper, but it's enough. You lift your arms, stretch your shoulders, and feel your spine crack all the way down. The wind no longer bites. It brushes. Behind you, your father grunts awake. The others stir. No one says anything. Everyone just feels it. The change. You walk to the edge of the path, kicking at a patch of snow. It gives way easily. The ground underneath is dark, rich, and very, very muddy. You smile. It smells like earth. The neighbor's child runs past, bareheaded, laughing. Not for any reason, just because the body needs to move. Your brother follows, slipping and falling into a snowbank, but getting up with a grin. You wave at the neighbor. She waves back. Someone's put out laundry on a line. It probably won't dry, but it feels good to pretend. Historians say the first warm day of late winter was often celebrated quietly. No festivals, no feasts, just a collective exhale, a glance skyward, a short walk, a prayer. Some called it the false spring, others the break, but everyone knew the feeling. Inside, your mother opens the shutter fully. Light floods in, revealing dust and cobwebs and faces blinking at brightness they haven't seen in weeks. Your sister starts sweeping with actual enthusiasm. Your father throws open the door and mutters, "We'll need to check the fences." You laugh, because of course you will. You eat breakfast by the fire with the door wide open. The pig waddles to the threshold, sits, and watches the day. Like it's judging the sky. You drink hot water with mint, and it doesn't feel desperate. It feels choiceful. By noon, you've pulled out the tools. Your brother starts hammering nails into the half-broken ladder. Your mother sets dried herbs near the window to let them breathe. You start sorting through the mess in the shed, thinking maybe, just maybe, you'll plant something this year, or at least try. You catch yourself smiling, and then you hear it again. The bird. You spot it, this time perched on a bare tree branch, head cocked, feathers fluffed, singing, not loud, but clear. You don't move. You just listen. And for a moment, the months of coughing, freezing, fetching water, patching roofs, rubbing your feet with bacon fat, sleeping next to cows, arguing with rats, and sharing stew with more turnips than broth, all of it fades. You survived. The worst is over. Probably. Maybe. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly felt the return of spring in their bones, or whether that's something we just like to believe. But you know better. You feel it. You walk back inside, stretch your arms above your head, and say without ceremony, "I think we made it." No one cheers, no one dances, but your sister smiles. Your mother pours more tea. The pig farts, and the world somehow feels lighter. The fire burns low now. You've fed it, stoked. It sat beside it through the long dark. Your cloak is still damp near the hem, but your shoulders feel warmer, stronger, lighter. Outside, the wind doesn't howl anymore. It whispers. The snow hasn't vanished, but it no longer threatens. It simply exists, quiet, settled, waiting, its turn to melt. You close your eyes and hear the soft creak of wood, the clink of a spoon in a bowl, the flutter of feathers as a chicken settles into its favorite corner. Everything is quieter now, slower. Your hands rest on your lap, no longer itching from cold or motion. Just still, just there, you made it. You did the chopping, the hauling, the stitching, the mending. You carried buckets across frozen fields. You fought off frostbite and cabin fever and whatever strange thoughts came during those long, endless nights. And now you rest. The candle flickers low. The shadows grow long and soft. You adjust your blanket, settle deeper into your straw mat, and let your breathing match the quiet rhythm of the room around you. There will be more days like this, and warmer ones too, and maybe even a harvest that doesn't taste like turnips. But for tonight you are safe, you are full, you are still. And as the last ember glows, as the last draft slips under the door, you let your eyes close and drift into dreams, not of firewood and roof leaks, but of sunlight on your face and the first green bud pushing through thawed earth. You've done enough. You are enough. Good night.